right, welcome to the latest episode of the Five Guys here on the Five Reasons YouTube channel. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick and at Five Reasons Sports. We got Alex Dono. You can follow him at Alex Dono. We're sponsored here by our friends over at Better Edge. Use the code 5RSN. You'll get $20 to play right away. You can see that the Florida Panthers today on their main board are 1.5 point favorites. 1.5 goal. I'm sorry. Use the NBA stuff. 1.5 goal. That wouldn't have worked out so well the other night, but you only got to win by 1 to get this thing done tonight, but you need to win by 2 to win that bet. Now, here's the difference between Better Edge and the other books. You might have heard some news about the Supreme Court and all that yesterday. But the difference between this one and that one is there are other markets there, so that you can find other spreads available if you prefer to play something else. So check it out. Again, betteredge.com. Use the code 5RSN. You get $20 to play. Also, we were going to congratulate the winner. We've got to find out who it is, but of our NBA Finals contest, giving away $100 in Better Edge funds there. So we do those contests there. All right, Alex, this is one of those situations where like a bad thing can turn into a good thing, right? So I will acknowledge I turned that thing off at 5-1 the other night. My daughter and I were out somewhere keeping track of it. They were down 3-1 after the first. Once it got to 5 and Bob got pulled, you knew there wasn't going to be a comeback that night. And honestly, the formula here is very similar to the Celtics formula. They won the first 3. They got blown out by 36 by the Mavs in game 4. It's kind of like losing 8-1 in hockey. And then they came back with a pretty convincing win at home in game 5. I don't expect anything really different tonight than that. Was your confidence shaken? And I'll be at the arena tonight, so I'm hoping to cover, I guess, what would be my 5th celebration. I was in New York for 03 with the Marlins. I was not there for the 97 one, but I was there for 03. I was with the Heat in 06 in Dallas, and then 12 and 13 in Miami. Do you think was your confidence shaken at all by the other night?
Not one bit. It wasn't shaken one bit because we knew a game like that was going to happen. Neither of us were expecting a clean sweep. And I can remember the show that we did. What was it? Either probably a little bit before game 3. It was either the day of or the day before game 3, where we were both of the mind the Panthers are going to drop one of those games because there's going to be such a sense of desperation and urgency from the Oilers. We weren't sure if it was going to be game 3. Actually, I bet Panthers money line in game 3 and won. Game 4, I said, I'm going to sit this one out because I had a feeling after game 3, the game 4 desperation, I didn't necessarily think it was going to be 8-1, but I also don't think that makes the difference that people think it is because, okay, would people be looking at this differently if, the Oilers had won 4-1 and not 8-1? Because from where I sit, Ethan, and I didn't make it through the entire game because as a Panthers fan, watching the third period would have been torture. But after the game got to 4-1 Oilers, I'm thinking, okay, like the Panthers might as well just pack it in and just start focusing on winning game 5 on home ice. I think that's what happened. They weren't checking as aggressively. You mentioned Bob got pulled after the 5th goal. So I think the mentality shifted. Like, to me, it doesn't really, obviously the Oilers dominated, good for them. They won a game in the series in dominant fashion. They gave their home fans, including the flasher, they gave everybody something to be excited about there. But to me, it's like, does it really make a difference if it was a 4-1 loss or an 8-1 loss? Every game is different, and I think the Florida Panthers are going to have the response necessary on home ice. So it didn't shake my confidence because I didn't think they were going to sweep it, and I had a feeling a game like that was coming for Edmonton. Let's just hope that they didn't pick up some sense of momentum from that, Ethan. I don't necessarily think momentum will be carried over, but I know that's the fear of some people out there.
Yeah, I think momentum only really matters with goalies. Honestly, I think that if a goalie, starts to doubt himself, you're talking about one person who can have such a dramatic impact on the game. But Bob has been through so many things over the years, and even to the point of being called a complete bust with the Panthers. You're talking about a guy who's likely going to the Hall of Fame, and certainly if he wins tonight, he will be. And yet, I remember 2 years ago where people were chanting that he sucks in the arena and lamenting the contract. And so I don't really think one game where he gave up a bunch of goals before he went out is going to affect him. I think also the fact that the Panthers were able to kind of dial it down a little bit at the end, whereas the Oilers seem to be trying to get it all out of their system. It kind of felt to me, and this is probably not the analogy I should use, but For the Oilers, it kind of felt like they were a little bit stopped up and just almost say they threw it up. They threw it all out, right? And they vomited a bunch of goals, and now they're lying down on the bed trying to recover and drink as much water as possible. I don't necessarily think that it's going to carry over from that perspective. I think that if you look at this Panthers team again, they've had to win every which way. The only thing that would concern me at all is, we saw early in that Rangers series, and the Panthers came back from this, but they lost some overtime games. If you have a tight game today and it goes to 2-2 or 3-3 into overtime, then really anything can happen, and then we'll start to have those conversations. Like, I don't think the Panthers are getting blown out tonight, right? But you lose like a tight game, an overtime game, a fluke goal, and then you got to fly back there, and that place is going to be juiced, and then it's like, okay, can they do what very few teams in major sports history have done? That would be the concern, but I don't view it as a major concern. I think there will be a celebration in that building tonight. And I think on the other side of this, what I want to talk about is what that might mean without jinxing it, because it does. We've talked about this town kind of changing a little bit. The thing that has got me the most was them filling the building the other night. People like scalping those tickets to get in to watch, on a screen. I've been talking about what's been happening over near me. I live in downtown Fort Lauderdale, and what's been happening in that area and with the Iceplex. But to have like all those people go to Sunrise and again, it being a really hot ticket, like this is going to build. And, hopefully, they finish it tonight. I would assume if they did, the parade probably be later in the week, maybe Thursday, Friday. Maybe they do it on Saturday. Problem with the weekends is you got to pay the police more. So that's why they don't do a lot. Right, particularly in Fort
it'll
Lauderdale.
Probably be during the week. Yeah, I would say my estimate would be if they win it tonight, Tuesday night, I would say probably a Thursday parade.
That's what I'm thinking. You got to give the city some time. Now, the city's had some time. Again, we're jinxing this completely and probably shouldn't do this, but they're building a brand new police headquarters on Broward Boulevard, and so I don't know what the resources are for this, but we'll see. But again, I would assume that Las Olas will probably be the place to be, and that's not an easy. I can tell you because I've lived on both sides of it. It's not an easy place to get to. But we'll deal with it then.
Could they do a river parade? Like, could they get boats involved?
That would, to me, that's what you should do. Make it like Winterfest over there. Yeah. But the logistics of that, I don't. And then there's also the weather concern there. Now, I don't know if the rain is coming back later in the week, but you better be sure that the forecast is right. But yes, if you did it there, they've done so much building. I'm going to regret now because I moved. I was right on the water. I'm not anymore. But like, they've done so much building there that literally, like, people could be all hanging out their balconies watching it. It'll look big. A lot bigger than it was on Las Olas. It's going to be weird for people outside of South Florida when ESPN shows the clips of a potential parade here. Because, again, I think everybody assumes they play in South Beach, and they're going to see all these places that they're going to see El Camino on Las Olas and be like, okay, and YOLO, okay, what is that? And the other option is they could do it on the beach. They could do it on but I mean, it's hard to get down there on a normal day. So I can tell you that wouldn't be easy. All right, we're going to talk about our sponsor here. By the way, he's still got a bunch of great deals on there, our guy Jose. So check him out at Jerseys 305. Here's a little bit about them.
Hey, it's Ethan Skolnick for the 5 Reasons Sports Network. We've got a great new sponsor that fits with us perfectly. It's called Jerseys305.com. That's Jerseys305.com. This is your home for dead stock and vintage jerseys from the Heat, Panthers, Dolphins, Marlins, and the other local teams. Their mission was born from a passion for wearing jerseys of the old styles and the past players. Jerseys 305 aims to make every fan stand out from the crowd with unique pieces that you don't commonly see anymore. Maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, but not today. And Jerseys 305 was created by the fans, for the fans. They're diehards just like you. In fact, they're probably listening to this episode right now. So check them out, Jerseys 305, their partnership with 5 Reasons Sports, celebrating with a 10% discount on the next purchase using the code 5 at checkout. Unlock your exclusive savings on the entire vintage collection.
All right, back here on the show. Again, check out Jerseys305.com. Heat jerseys, Dolphins jerseys, Panthers jerseys, that other team that plays baseball's jerseys, and more. They've got all of that. Alex, so let's talk about this. How many celebrations have you covered?
I have covered oddly enough, 0 celebrations. I have never. I've been
Down the
to.
jinx.
Yeah. Like I've covered playoff games. I've actually never covered a finals game. Like as a member of the media, actually, I went to a Stanley Cup Finals game in 1996. Not that any of those games went well for the Panthers, but I have never covered a parade because, Ethan, for as much as I like to chat and socialize with people online, I hate crowds and logistical nightmares. So if you tell me, oh, by the way, that there's going to be, hundreds of thousands of people at this location and you're going to have to park 18 blocks away, all of that to me is like, no, thank you. I will watch Channel 10 or whatever at home. I'm good.
I'm with you actually on the parade part. I will say this, like I said, I've covered 3 celebrations. They were all a little different. I will say that 2006. Well, let's go back. 2003, the Marlins one was fun, even though that wasn't my primary beat. But I was basically covering the other teams in the playoffs. That's when the Sun Sentinel had money, and I was covering the other teams in the playoffs. So I was actually going back and forth between Fenway, Wrigley, and Yankee Stadium. Starting in the LCS, like 3 real stadiums, unlike the one the Marlins were playing at. So I was there for Boone's Homer. I was in New York for Boone's Homer. I was in Chicago for Bartman's play. I was going back and forth between those places, and then I joined the Marlins for the World Series. And so what I remember about that was, of course, Jeffrey Lurie running around the bases, AJ Burnett, who still wasn't happy. He was never happy. Didn't want the media around on it. And he didn't even contribute to that World Series. But it was weird because it was just, we did it in Yankee Stadium. My favorite story on that is I got in an elevator. I can't believe this is 21 years ago. I got in an elevator, and the only other person in the elevator was Brian Cashman, the general manager of the Yankees.
Yeah. And
he looked at me and he just goes, and you know where he was probably going? The boss's office. Because that time the boss was still alive. And so George was still alive. And so I actually wrote about that in my column. So that was 2003. 2006, I was there in Dallas. My favorite memory from that, other than Alonzo Mourning taking 15 minutes to answer one Rachel Nichols question, although I appreciate it because of everything. Cause that was typical Zoe, but he had earned the day. Yeah. Was that the other thing I remember about that was Jason Williams going around the locker room, spraying the media with champagne and saying, "I'm not a effing cancer. I'm not an effing cancer."
I remember that. Yeah, I remember seeing that.
And Antoine Walker telling us that he was going to drink until training camp, and he did, because he and James Posey were suspended. He was a man of his word for being overweight. And then there were the 2 at home, and I mostly remember that for LeBron stuff and Dwayne. Yeah. And I have a great photo of Mario Chalmers swigging a bottle. I lost so many of these photos, and I hate it, but I have a great photo of Mario Chalmers swinging a bottle of champagne in front of the Heat locker room, just by himself, just like. And of course there was the Bosch, pouring the champagne on himself. And then Dwayne, I have a photo in my apartment where he's covered in like the petals on the floor, the red petals, and he's got his arms, he's doing a snow angel. So those are my memories. So I guess I've actually covered 4. Tonight will be different. I haven't been around this team as much as the others. Hockey locker rooms tend to smell no matter what, the worst. So I'm bracing for that because of all the equipment. But it's something that it really should happen at home. When the Heat did it in Dallas, it was cool, but then they got on a plane. You know what I mean? Yeah. And this is just a different experience. And the other thing, Alex, is, and I'll let you close here, is that this is a different kind of team because this is a small but suffering fan base. Like for all the bandwagons like that are on there now, and they're fine to join. There is a hardcore small group of Panther fans that lived with years where like Stephen Weiss was their best player, and Nathan Horton and Jay Bomeister and those kind of guys. And then there were years they didn't even have players of that promise. This is for them. So I'm hoping that they get it done tonight.
Yeah, I know at least three people who have been season ticket holders since basically the beginning. This one guy, you probably know him as well, Andy from the Pines, has been through all the good times and all the bad times. I know a couple of other people who have, I think he's been a season ticket holder since day one, like absolutely franchise. And there are others I know who have been season ticket holders since long before the team was good and long before the team was relevant. Right. And for them, like I'm just so excited for the opportunity because they must feel like they got in on the ground floor of like,
Yeah.
hey, none of you guys used to care about this team. Like, and I'm talking about when the Panthers were right when they weren't even sniffing the playoffs. And it's completely turned around. We've seen sustained playoff success in recent years, second straight trip to the Stanley Cup Finals, and the opportunity. And listen, I'm not disparaging it. If you want to jump on the bandwagon, fine. Like I definitely jumped on the bandwagon in 1996. I mean, I was I was like 12 years old or 11, 12 years old, Ethan. And when that team started winning, and, people started to tell the stories about the rats on the ice. Like I hadn't really cared about the earlier parts of the season, but come playoff time, I was all in. And I really felt like that was my team by the end of it. I've been a Panthers fan ever since, right? Like I wasn't really a big hockey guy before that Stanley Cup Finals run. So not to disparage anyone for jumping on the bandwagon, but the people who have been with this team through thick and thin since day one in a non-traditional hockey market, those are the fans that I'm going to feel happiest for tonight. And of course, the players. I mean, Sasha Barkov, he's been on this team for a decade. You already talked about the adversity that Sergei Bobrovsky has been through. His first couple of years as a Florida Panther, he was not living up to that contract, and he was looking like a bust. I don't know why it happened, but he's clearly found his form now. And there's so many other players that are great stories. Like I want to see Matthew Tkachuk win a Stanley Cup. I mean, the opportunity and what he's done in a Panthers uniform the last couple of years. So I can't wait, and I can't wait to see if they can get it done, whether it's tonight or in any of the next 3 games. If the Florida Panthers can get it done and secure this Stanley Cup, I want to see if they can really build lasting foundations where it doesn't become like anything we've seen happen with the Marlins when they won 2 championships. If the Panthers can build lasting foundations and really become a long-term fixture in this town.
Yeah, I don't have any fear of becoming the Marlins. I don't think that this ownership group intends for it to become the Marlins, and I don't think this general manager will stay if it becomes the Marlins. I feel like this is, this is a built for success roster. We've talked about it. It doesn't mean they're going to win the cup every year, but they're going to go into the next couple of years with a chance. And they're going to get criticized more because they have set a certain standard now, and people know the players. And if certain players underperform, they're going to hear about it in a way that you could go under the radar before. Nobody cared. Now they're going to care. Caring is a good thing. I always say Pat Riley made basketball matter in this town. That's his biggest accomplishment. He made it matter, and he's made it continue to matter. Trust me, my texts, my DMs, my everything. He's made it continue to matter. Will the Panthers ever matter to that degree? Probably not, okay? But they have a chance to matter in a way that they can, again, like you said, build sustained fandom and credibility and expectation in this town, and that's a good thing. All right, we want to thank our sponsors, Better Edge, 5RSN. Use the code 305, jersey305.com. Also, check out Alex Baumgartner, Caitlin Daly, and I will all be at the arena tonight. So check out our coverage. We'll have everything for you. Have a good one, everybody.